Hey everybody, thanks for watching and welcome to Greek Mythology Volume 1. I could have really started out with this video and put this out, but there's so much more, information. It's sort of prerequisites to this video that I wanted to get out and get people to understand before we got into this kind of information. And as you'll see, when we go along, it requires prior knowledge. And as we get deeper into this series, you'll understand why, because it entails a lot and deals with a lot of history that has been hidden from us for too long. Now, it's crazy to me when you really pay attention and look at Greek mythology and you read the books and you understand what it's talking about, how people cannot make the comparison and make the connection with biblical religion and religion, all the major religions that we see today for that matter, besides Buddhism. But you can understand that when people make the connection, as I have made the connection in my videos about the Hebrew Israelites, when I keep talking about the Greeks dealing with this Bible, dealing with Judaism, when people make that connection and give you this kind of information, it is very clear. If you just read certain books and understand certain Greek authors and Greek scholars and what they talked about way back, BC time, they basically give you everything you need to know to understand exactly what happened in history as far as why and how the Greeks did what they did. So this is what we're going to get into, and we're going to look at Greek mythology to do so, and it's important. So what I want you guys to understand, and what I have talked about in the previous videos on all of this, is you got to understand the Greeks. You had the Greeks and you had the ancient Egyptians living peacefully in Kemet. That's a fact. This is something that nobody can deny. Everybody came into Kemet to learn. When people say that, this is not something that we have to speculate about and just say to try to brag as African people. It's a fact. It's something that they admit themselves, as well as the Romans and everybody else admit. Everybody came into Kemet to learn. Everybody came into Northern Africa to learn. Proven fact. So when you have this kind of relationship going on, you had the Greeks coming into Kemet and they was living there. They set up civilizations and they lived and they stayed and they learned from the Africans and everything was fine. Everything was all well and good. It was a good civilization, as I talked about. Now you had other people at the top who had other plans for Kemet and for that knowledge, and they had other ideas for, that kind of information. So when you pay attention to the Persians coming in to Kemet and taking over, the reason why I said before that this was an inside job, because one, you have to understand there is no way that the Persians will have attacked Kemet if they did not know 100% for sure that the Greeks would not intervene. They knew they could not beat the Greeks and the Egyptians at the same time. It would be impossible. When you understand the close relationship between the Egyptians and the Greeks, you would think that, well, if I attack them, then the Greeks are going to intervene. Not to mention, you have the port in Phoenicia that I talked about in Ancient History Volume 1. You had everybody using that port, and the Phoenicians there. You had the Greeks there. And for the Persians to come in into attack would just be stupid unless they had a guarantee that the Greeks would not intervene. So this is why I believe it was a setup and the Greeks were involved. We only have one account of the Greeks actually trying to help the Egyptians during this time. And they sent out a ship to help and the ship was sink. So it just doesn't fit for the Persians to make this kind of bold attack on the Egyptians without knowing that the Greeks will intervene. And there's a lot of information about, the Persian king sending a word to Alexander saying, don't intervene, and that they're supposed to be related and all of this kind of stuff I talked about in Saturn and Satan series. So we know we had the Persians go in there and conquer the Egyptian territory. They would eventually conquer it. Remember, the Egyptians fought back. And we know that the Persians eventually prevailed. Then we know that the Greeks came in there and conquered the Persians. And that's another thing that's suspect, because remember, it is said that Alexander didn't even step foot inside Kemet before they actually conquered the Persians. So it was either possibly some kind of agreement that went on that the Persians would go ahead and conquer the Egyptian territory and that the Greeks would take over, or, maybe they double crossed the Persians or something like that. But the Greeks, who could have easily, helped the Egyptians after everything the Egyptians did for them, could have easily intervened and helped Kemet and, easily defeated the Persians, but they didn't do that, which shows clearly that their agenda was to allow Kemet to fall. There's no other way around that. Their agenda was to allow Kemet to fall so they can eventually get in there and get what they got from Kemet. And as Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben kept saying, nobody came to Kemet's aid. Nobody came to the aid of the Egyptians. After everything they did for the people and everybody who came in and got knowledge, nobody came to help them when they were bombarded with so many attacks from the Persians and then later the Greeks. So as I said before, it kind of sort of fits the MO that we see from our government today. We have, one, you can't, the Greeks can't just attack Kemet. They wanted Kemet. They couldn't just attack Kemet because, the Greeks lived there. You have people, Greek citizens who lived in Kemet, and it would have been suspect. It would have been like, what's going on? So to get another, group of people to attack them, and then the Greeks come in and say, well, we're going to try to help the Egyptians out and try to take the country back, and do what's right, sort of like what America does today. And, we understand that they started the whole thing from the jump. So this is what the Greeks did, same type of MO. So once the Persians came in there and took over, the Greeks would later come in and take over. And as I pointed out before, you got to understand that the people in those territories, I'm talking about stretching from Kemet, Egypt, all the way over to Lebanon. We understand Israel as well was a part of the Egyptian empire. So those people in those territories were African people, when the Persians conquered and when the Greeks conquered. So these are the people who they had, under their control. And you have to realize that these people were Africans. And as we can see, as I have shown you, they basically tried to get these people to worship them as gods. As I showed you the Serapis, Ptolemy dressed as an Egyptian. Now, we can go back and look. You're not going to find no depictions of Greeks dressing like Egyptians until after the Ptolemaic rule, until after they came in and conquered Kemet. So this goes to show, one, the fact that we have Zeus, Ammon, that we have Serapis, that we have all these Greeks trying to copy and mimic what they seen in Kemet, shows you that this is what they was trying to do. They was trying to get the Africans, the Egyptian people, to worship them as gods, and the Egyptians wasn't having it. And this is how I said to you guys how they came up and why they came up with Judaism. So one of the main things I want to point out to you and show you is how it's the fact that they hid all of this, inside of the Torah. They hid Greek mythology in biblical religion. And when you understand Greek mythology and what it's speaking about, this is easy to see, clear to see. So you gotta get people to understand, one, because get this argument a lot. Greek mythology predates any biblical manuscript that we have, including the Septuagint. Greek mythology goes back to at least 1000 BCE. So we understand that no, the Torah did not exist. The Bible did not exist. No proven biblical manuscripts existed before 1000 BCE. Period, point blank. So we can just end that noise right there, because you'll get a lot of people that say, what are you talking about? The Bible predates Greek mythology. Only in the Bible. Only in the Bible. There's no document nobody is going to produce that they're going to give you any kind of manuscript that's going to predate Greek mythology, period. So suffice it to say, the stories and the stuff we're going to talk about here predates anything biblical. And when you see that, and since we can prove this fact, you have to only come to the conclusion that this is where your biblical religion came from. And this is where Greek mythology stole their stories from ancient Kemet, as you'll see. And all of this stuff, as we've been saying for years, goes back to ancient Kemet. So now, first thing I had to do when I started getting into this information over 15 years ago was to try to figure out what was the origin for biblical religion. What is their explanation of where this stuff came from? And as I talked about before, it goes back to Ptolemy II Philadelphus. So when you get into the letters of Orestes, and it's talking about, Ptolemy II Philadelphus basically commissioning 6 Hebrew elders, each from the 12 tribes of Israel, to come to Alexandria, Egypt, to do a translation of the Hebrew law to Greek. And they supposedly did this translation really fast, and this is how we get the Septuagint, Greek. So this is the official explanation for where the Torah began. Now, when you start looking, many people give you the biblical explanation that is not proven. So this is where the whole misconception that, the Old Testament was written in Hebrew, this is where all that comes from. So you have a lot of people walking around with that knowledge and repeating that, the Old Testament was written in Hebrew, not Greek, but there's absolutely no proof of that. This is what is said in a book. This is what is said by scholars, but it's no proof. We have no proof whatsoever of a Hebrew manuscript that has existed that predates the Septuagint Greek. So the simple fact that you have the Greeks involved, and when you start getting into the stuff that we're going to talk about, it's all suspect. So we put that on the table first. You got the Greeks involved, all this stuff still surrounding the Greeks, the very people who conquered Kemet. Think about that. The very people who was forcing Hellenization, the very people who was trying to push Serapis and all these gods. Think about this. This is the part that has me baffled with people like, what the hell is wrong with y'all? When you go back and look at history, you see the Greek hands in everything. Their hands are in everything. Everything dealing with biblical religion, everything dealing with pushing any kind of ideology was coming from the Greeks. You have nobody talking about these Jews or Hebrews. Everybody's talking about the Greeks. So when we see that, and we see the fact that once you get the Greco-Roman era and the type of conquest these people did, the type of, intellectual domination that these people put on, the people back during those times. I mean, they controlled everything. And this is all the stuff you have to take into account. You have to just take into account and listen and understand that when you're going back to ancient times, to BC times, you're dealing with the Romans, you're dealing with the Greeks, plain and simple. So we got to keep that in mind. So now there's no way that after you see this video, you're going to have any more doubts about this stuff. It's not too many people talking about it. I don't see too many people that's going to be giving you this kind of information that we're going to get into in this DVD. And it's a lot of people that don't really get deep into what this stuff entails, which we will. So plain and simple, there are 7 Greek poets, scholars, historians that you need to read and understand to really get all this stuff. 7. You got 3 P's, you got 3 H's, and you got a D. There's actually more, but I'll go with this 7 because these are the 7 that I researched, that I got my information from, as far as putting these pieces together and looking at what is proven or what they have out that is proven. And it's no way that you can read this stuff and understand that, one, it predates biblical religion and not make the connection. So we have Plato, we have Plutarch, we have Pindar, we have Hesiod or Hesiod, however you want to pronounce his name. We have Herodotus, we have Homer, and we have Diodorus. If you pay attention to those 7 poets, scholars, historians, researchers, whatever you want to call them, they have all the answers. We can throw Virgil in there as well. They have the answers. You pay attention to what they wrote and the information that they put out. I mean, it's no way you can look at just Hesiod and Herodotus, Diodorus, the people who was around during this time. We're talking about before and after Greek conquest, people who was there to see the Egyptians and understood what they looked like and what they was doing, and people who understood what took place. Diodorus understood what took place, and that the Greeks was basically portraying themselves to be ancient Egyptians and hiding all of their mythology and religion or what have you within the Greek mythology and within religion itself. All this stuff is revealed in their books. All this stuff is out there for people to basically take in and read. And if you don't, then you're going to have a lot of questions. You're never going to be able to put this stuff together. Luckily for you, I did all the hard work, which I expect you to do your own research. But after this, you won't have to. So now understand, as I have been saying, the Bible, the Torah itself does not predate the 4th century BCE, period. This is around the time when you had the Greeks develop the religion. It does not predate the 4th century BCE, which is why they had to put in the Bible that God destroyed Israel a whole bunch of times so they can account for the lack of evidence, the lack of bodies. So he destroyed, Jerusalem and Israel so many times or what have you. What about the bodies that was under the ground already from the people that was, dead? Why would you destroy dead bodies again? How come we're not digging up any Hebrew bodies or finding any Hebrew ruins of civilizations? So this is why they put that stuff on the Bible, so they can try to explain why we can't find any Hebrew civilizations, any ancient Jewish civilizations that predate the 4th century BCE. Plain and simple. So this is why stuff is in there. So now any so-called ancient Hebrew artifacts that they find, any kind of artifact that they find that has so-called ancient Hebrew writing or Paleo Hebrew or what have you, any of that kind of bullshit that they find, it belongs to the Phoenician Canaanites. Plain and simple. It belongs to the Phoenicians or the Canaanites. And they're trying to pass it off as Hebrew. That's a fact. There was no such thing as no damn Jews or no Hebrews during that time. So this is why they get into the whole Paleo Hebrew, because they know, one, that the Greek language developed from the Phoenicians, and that the Hebrew language supposed to as well develop from the Phoenicians. But how is that possible when, the first people supposed to be speaking Hebrew and Moses supposed to have spoken Hebrew? What is that all about? To get two different stories, conflicting stories from Bible scholars who one people would say that the Hebrew language developed on its own. It didn't come from any other language, that Hebrew was the first spoken language. And then you get people who will say, well, Hebrew had to develop from the Phoenicians. And this is why we get this whole Paleo Hebrew, because they have to attach themselves to something to give them validity. So when you see any kind of artifact or anything that is so-called Paleo Hebrew or what have you, it's Phoenician, it's Canaanite, and they're trying to steal it. That's a fact. Besides the ancient Egyptians, the Greeks was the first to speak about God's walking among men. God's walking among men, people praying to gods for material things, people being punished for sins or what have you, people going to an underworld, people going to a heaven. Outside of Kemet, the Greeks were the first ones to do it, and they were the first ones to put their stuff into an organized religion or organized practice that we call Greek mythology. Plain and simple. When you understand that fact, it is not hard at all to understand what has taken place and what they've done. And, this stuff is ridiculous to me that you have the whole world deceived by this. And it just takes reading 2 books to figure out what they did. Knowing history to figure out what they did is frustrating. So when we get through this video and you see and you look at this stuff, it's so easy, the way I'm about to put it to you, that it almost seems unreal. That it's like, it can't be that simple. It's not, but it's going to look that way. But if you don't speak ancient Greek, if you don't know about this stuff, if you don't have the time to really dig into this kind of information, you're just not going to get it. Couple that with the fact that you have so much enforcement and so much to back up the lies of biblical religion, which is why it's hard for a lot of people to get this. And a lot of times when you look at the debates and arguments, the whole thing can be settled with them just going back to Greek mythology and destroying anything biblical, which I'm about to do here. So you have the Greeks talking about worshiping gods and gods coming down and mingling with men or what have you. And you understand that the world at that time, the world during that time was really caught up in, spirituality. They was trying to figure out where it came from. It was a lot of interest in anything spiritual and anything that had to do with what was going on and how they got there. So they put these stories together, same as the ancient Egyptians did, to basically hide the science and math behind it, to make it more explainable for those in the mystery schools. And this is what took place. You had the people in the mystery schools understand what was being said. And if you want to give people knowledge and just say, well, maybe you're not old enough to understand this stuff, so I'm going to give it to you in little stories to give you a meaning. When you read a bedtime story to your child, you give them a story, but in that story is a moral to the story. So this is what these mythologies was about. They was giving you stories, but the moral to the story had to do with the origin of life, how we got here, and, science, math, physics, geometry, all this stuff is wrapped up within these stories. So this is what it was about. And this is what the Greeks copied from the ancient Egyptians, who taught them, about all this stuff. So now let's get into this stuff. We know you have Genesis, you have the Bible, you have God creating the heavens and the earth in 6 days, rested on the seventh day. Days. So now if you read Hesiod or Hesiod, however you want to pronounce his name, if you read his Theogony, Works and Days, he explains how the gods created men in 5 different ages. So you have the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, you have the Age of Heroes, and you have the Iron Age. A lot of you know about this already. But if you read the book, you should have absolutely no questions about where this stuff came from. So when you understand when you get into Works and Days, it gives you everything. And you can understand where they got it from. But when you get into Works and Days, he's basically breaking down Greek mythology as we know it. And you can see exactly where they stole a lot of the biblical concepts that they have. Got it right from Works and Days, which Hesiod wrote this, I believe, 700 BCE, long before the Greeks conquered Kemet, long before any biblical anything. So you have, as you know, in Greek mythology, remember, Prometheus stole the fire from Zeus and gave it to men. Now, a lot of people don't understand it was Prometheus who created men. Remember, Prometheus created men, which explains why this movie was called Prometheus, and it's dealing with the creation of human life. So Prometheus, the god, Greek god, created men. He stole the flame from Zeus. And basically, remember, Pandora was created and released all the ills on mankind because of what Prometheus did. So when you get into Works and Days, let's read here. I'll start here. It says, the lame god molded earth as Zeus decreed into the image of a modest girl. Great-eyed Athene made her robes and belt. Divine seduction and the graces gave her golden necklace, and for her head the seasons wove spring flowers into a crown. Hermes the messenger put in her breast lies and persuasive words and cunning ways. The herald of the gods then named the girl Pandora, for the gifts of which all the gods have given her. This ruin of mankind. The deep and total trap was now complete. The father sent the gods' first messenger to bring the gift to Epimetheus, and Epimetheus forgot the words. His brother said to take no gift from Zeus, but send it back, lest it should injure men. He took the gift and understood too late. Before this time, men lived upon the earth, apart from sorrow and from painful works, free from disease, which brings the death god's end. But now the woman opened up the cask and scattered pains and evils among men. Inside the cask's hard walls remained one thing, hope, only, which did not fly through the door. The lid stopped her. But all the others flew, thousands of troubles wandering the earth. The earth is full of evils, and the sea disease come to visit men by day, and uninvited come again at night, bringing their pains in silence, for they were deprived of speech by Zeus the wise. And so there is no way to flee the mind of Zeus. And now with art and skill, I'll summarize another tale which you should take to heart, of how both gods and men begin the same. The gods who lived on Mount Olympus first fashioned a golden race of mortal men. These lived in the reign of Kronos, king of heaven. And like the gods, they lived with happy hearts, untouched by work or sorrow. Vile old age never appeared, but always lively limbed, far from any ills. They feasted happily. Death came to them as sleep, and all good things were theirs. Ungrudgingly, the fertile land gave up her fruits, unasked. Happy to be at peace, they lived with every want supplied. Rich in their flocks, dear to the blessed gods. And then this race was hidden in the ground, but still they lived as spirits of the earth, holy and good, guardians who keep off harm, givers of wealth. This kingly right is theirs. The gods who live on Mount Olympus next fashion a lesser silver race of men, unlike the gold in structure or in mind, which we'll get into. So it's giving you almost the same kind of concept with Genesis, when you understand that all mankind is doomed because of the actions of Adam and Eve, which doesn't seem fair. Same here in Greek mythology, you have Zeus basically punishing all mankind because of the actions of Prometheus. So when you understand one, Ares, remember, didn't find favor in men, and Zeus didn't really like us either. So, Prometheus still in fire was just the icing on the cake, but you kind of sort of have that same kind of concept with this punishment that mankind receives because of the actions of a few. So Pandora releasing all of the ills on mankind is the same as Eve biting the apple and releasing the same on us and damning us from paradise, because it said before this happened, everybody was, living fine. There was no illnesses, until all of this happened. So it's giving you that same kind of concept. It's also calling Kronos the god of heaven. And we know Kronos is Saturn, Roman Saturn, and Saturn is Satan. So it's giving you these connections here. So you have, Satan being a god of this world, and Kronos being the god of heaven. And when we get through this, you'll understand how all of this is really going to connect and show you that it's all talk about the same stuff, which is obviously clear right now. So one of the things you have to understand, remember it said that death was like a dream, which is a huge hint right there. One of the things you have to understand about in Greek mythology is that when people died, they became demons. So daemons or demons, however you want to pronounce it, we know the word translates to demon. So demons were good in Greek mythology. Demons were not a bad thing. It's what people became. They wanted the earth. They did different things. Either they went to Elysium, which we'll talk about later, or you went to Hades, or you went to the pits of Tartarus, which we'll talk about. And this is what happened when people died, when men died. This is what happened during the Golden Age. So when you read about these daemons, now when you read the etymology, it says daemon comes from the ancient Greek word, which originally referred to a lesser deity or guided spirit. The word is further derived from the Proto-Indo-European daemon, provider, divider of fortune or destinies. Daemons are benevolent or benign nature spirits, being of the same nature as both mortals and deities, similar to ghosts, chthonic heroes, spirit guides, forces of nature, or the deities themselves. According to Hasad's myth, great and powerful figures were to be honored after death as a daemon. From Hasad also, the people of the Golden Age were transformed into daemons by the will of Zeus to serve mortals benevolently as their guardian spirits, good beings who dispense riches. They remain invisible, known only by their acts. So now, if people don't want to accept the fact that you have the ancient Egyptians already talking about an afterlife, talking about an underworld, speaking about gods walking among men or what have you, we can go to the next civilization. We can go to the Greeks, who also spoke about a heaven, who spoke about demons, who has themes that is, related to or the same as biblical religion. Not to mention the fact that we have the Septuagint written in Greek, as well as the New Testament written in Greek, All of this stuff is suspect. Talking about a God of heaven, talking about demons or what have you. It's clear as day, what took place. But this was the golden age. When you get into the silver age, it's not so much difference, not so much that happened. The silver age, Zeus made men, weaker than the men during the golden age. They wasn't equal to the men during the golden age, but they still live, in the hundreds. They lived long. They worked though. They tilled the ground. But the problem was they didn't worship the gods, so Zeus basically killed them all. And that was the silver age. But we get into the bronze age. Now, in the bronze age, let's read. Real quickly, it says, Zeus the father made a third generation, which gold was the first, silver was the second, this is the third. So Zeus the father made a third generation of mortal men, a brazen race sprung from ash trees, and it was in no way equal to the silver age, but was terrible and strong. They loved the lamentable work of Ares and deeds of violence. They ate no bread, but were hard of heart, like adamant, fearful men. Now I'll stop right there because when you get into the Bronze Age, when you start reading and getting into it, it's a lot to get into. But when you read the Bronze Age and you read the book of Enoch, you can see where they got it from. Everything that they explain in the book of Enoch about how evil men were during that time. During that time, it was eating men, it was killing men, there was a lot of war, they was building weapons and everything like that. They wore body armor, they was teaching the men how to do crazy stuff. This is the same type of stuff when you get into the Iron Age, the Bronze Age, that was going on in Greek mythology. Same type of stuff. So when you look at even still in the Bible, when it's talking about right before the flood, what was going on, men was evil, every imagination, every thoughts of their heart was evil and wicked or what have you. And, God killed them all. It's the same stuff. So we can see right here in the Bronze Age, it's talking about wicked, evil men and what they was doing. Now, the part that you can't let slide that a lot of people probably did when you start reading about this is the part that when it says that men was made of ash trees. Ash trees. If you ever had one of those trees in your backyard or in your neighborhood, you ever see one of those trees when you shake them, you had these little leaves come down like helicopters spinning. Those are ash trees. And those are the seeds actually from ash trees. But when you understand what ash trees are and the reason why they put ash trees in the Bronze Age, why it's talking about this in Greek mythology, is because ash trees has a taxonomic rank of genus like genes. So it has a taxonomic rank of genus, which taxonomic is basically a biological classification of, organisms and fossils. So it's talking clearly about genes here when it's talking about the ash trees. Now it says here, I'll skip down here. It says with age, ash may change their sexual function from predominantly male and hermaphrodite towards femaleness. If grown as a ornamental and both sexes are present, ashes can cause a considerable litter problem with their seeds. Ornamental. So ornamental basically mean if you're going to grow the tree to look at, to just have, what happens is when you have male and female present, their offspring, the seeds become toxic, become dangerous. So what happens is you start to see these holes, these spots appear on the leaves, and they basically destroy themselves and everything around them. So the seeds or the offspring of the male and female ash trees, the leaves being together, causes their seeds, their offspring, to be destructive and to destroy and kill. You get the hint? So plain and simple, when you look at this fact, why I said the ash tree and use that terminology to give you the same type of understanding. It's exactly what happened in the book of Enoch. You had the sons of God coming to the daughter of men. Their seeds were destructive. They killed. They basically destroyed themselves and everything around them. This is the analogy. This is what it's giving you, the whole parable about the ash tree, giving you the same thing here in Greek mythology. So it's basically the same thing that happened in the Bible with sons of God coming into the daughters of men and them producing these beings that was evil, that was basically destroying everything. It's giving you that whole parable with the ash tree and basically what happens when male and female come together and the destruction that they create, or their seeds create, I should say. So in the book of Enoch, in the Bible, what happened to these evil races of men? God destroyed them with a flood. And when you read Apollodorus, Bibliotech, another Theogony, Greek mythology, the same thing happened to the people in the Bronze Age. They were destroyed with the flood. This is what Zeus did to them, and where we get the whole Deucalion and Pyrrha story with these evil men in the Bronze Age being destroyed with a flood. Clear as day, we can see the comparison with Greek mythology and biblical religion and see which one predated which, so we know where they got it from. So that's how basically the Bronze Age ended. You had so much death and destruction, war and everything, or what have you. And the Bronze Age ended with that flood. Then we have the Fourth Age, which would be the Age of Heroes, or also called the Mycenaean Age. This is where Zeus made the demigods, like Hercules or what have you, or Samson. And the demigods were basically the heroes out there, going out there and basically saving shit. So not going to get too much into the Age of Heroes. What basically end up happening is you have most of the heroes die. Trojan War and all kinds of wars. They was created by Zeus to basically go out and do a lot of different things to basically help people out. And, one of the ways to get into heaven or Elysium was to be a hero. And this is where most of them went, to the Elysium Isles or the Elysium Fields. And that's basically how the Age of Heroes ended. But I want to get into the fifth and final age, which is the Iron Age, the age that his side is in. So now it says, far seeing Zeus made another race, the fifth, who live now on the fertile earth. I wish I were not of this race, that I had died before or had not yet been born. This is the race of iron. Now, by day, men work and grieve unceasingly. By night, they waste away and die. The gods will give harsh burdens, but will mingle in some good. Zeus will destroy this race of mortal men when babies shall be born with graying hair. Father will have no common bond with son, neither will guest with host nor friend with friend. The brother love of past days will be gone. Men will dishonor parents who grow old too quickly and will blame and criticize with cruel words. Wretched and godless, they refusing to repay their bringing up will cheat their aged parents of their due. Men will destroy towns of other men. The just, the good, the men who kept his word will be despised, but men will praise the bad and insolent. Might will be right, and shame will cease to be. Men will do injury to better men by speaking crooked words and adding lying oaths. Now I'm going to skip down here. It says, but there are some who will till the fields of pride and work at evil deeds. Zeus marks them out, and often all the city suffers for their wicked schemes. And on these men from heaven, the son of Cronos sends great punishment, both plagues and famine, and the people die. Their wives are barren, and their villages dwindle according to the plan of Zeus. At other times, the son of Cronos will destroy their army, or will snatch away their city wall, or all their ships at sea. You lords take notice of this punishment. The deathless gods are never far away. They mark the crooked judges who grind down their fellow men and do not fear the gods. 3 times 10,000 watches over men, immortal, roam the fertile earth for Zeus. Clothed in a mist, they visit every land and keep a watch on lawsuits and on crimes. One of them is the virgin born of Zeus, Justice, revered by all the Olympian gods. So now when you go on to finish reading about what happened during the Iron Age, you understand that this is where the gods leave Earth. They leave Earth, Zeus leaves, and he basically vows to come back and basically destroy, the race of men, destroy the people, or what have you. So this is basically how the Iron Age ends, with men being alone and the gods leaving and not communicating with the people. And this is where, we basically are. And this is where Hassad is basically speaking about what has happened and the ages that came before. Now, when you pay attention with Zeus, you could just see, one, how he is exactly like the God of the Bible, does good things, does bad things, evil stuff. You know, you can see how these people, the Greek gods, have sort of emotions like men. It's the same thing with God, you know, jealousy and rage or what have you. And you can see how, you know, it's bad things that happen to the regular people. Same thing in the Bible. And when you just keep on reading the stories and understanding how you can compare them to Greek mythology, I mean, it's crazy. It's so easy to do so, to compare them, because a lot of the stuff just fits. The terminology, the wording is exactly the same in Greek mythology as it is in the Bible. So we know we have heaven and hell. You know, you have Hades, you have Elysium. So remember in Elysium being like heaven, just like in the movie, Elysium was beautiful. And this is where like rich people live, and, you know, you had to be selected to get up there or what have you. It's the same thing. Elysium was basically heaven. And a lot of scholars, all of the people who I listed before, all of the scholars all wrote about Elysium and about what it was. So now this is what Pindar had to say. This is Pindar Odes. For those living a righteous life, the good receive a life free from toil, not scraping with the strength of their arms the earth, nor the water of the sea, for the sake of a poor sustenance. But in the presence of the honored gods, those who gladly kept their oaths enjoy a life without tears, while the others undergo a toil that is unbearable to look at. Those who have persevered 3 times on either side to keep their souls free from all wrongdoing follow Zeus's road to the end, to the tower of Kronos, where ocean's breeze blow around the island of the blessed, and flowers of gold are blazing, some from splendid trees on land, while water nurtures others. With these wreaths and garlands of flowers, they entwine their hands according to the righteous counsel of Rhadamanthus, whom the great father, the husband of Re, whose throne is above all others, keeps close beside him as his partner. That is from the Odes of Pindar. Now, when you pay attention to Greek mythology, you have some scholars who write Kronos being the god, the ruler of the underworld. But Rhadamanthus basically roams the underworld and roams Elysium, I should say, but he is a judge of the underworld. Rhadamanthus, his name translates to soothsayer, to a person who conquers, one who conquers or what have you. So Rhadamanthus is also put there in Elysium. He is the son of Zeus and Europa. Remember, Europa is where Europe comes from. Now, according to a lot of Greek scholars, a lot of Greeks who wrote about Elysium was actually on Earth. It was supposed to be at the far western edge for all you flat earthers, edge of the planet, of the Earth. So now this is what Plutarch had to say about Elysium. Now I'm going to read this briefly. Plutarch says, "These are 2 in number, separated by a very narrow strait. They are 10,000 furlongs distance from Africa, and are called the Islands of the Blessed." Now this is what Diodorus said. Diodorus, in his first book, suggested that the Elysian fields, which were much celebrated by Grecian poetry, corresponded to the beautiful plains in the neighborhood of Memphis, which contained the tombs of that capital city of Egypt. He further intimated that the Greek prophet Orpheus composed his fable about the afterlife when he traveled to Egypt and saw the customs of the Egyptians regarding the rites of the dead. Now, Diodorus' first book, Library of History, Book 1. So now, when you look at the synopsis, it's saying here, Egypt, the origin of the world and of civilized life. The gods, the first men. Egypt, the land, the Nile, and its flooding. Egypt, the first kings. Egypt, customs and religion. This is why I tell people to follow Diodorus, because when you understand what he wrote in his writings, he basically is one of the only Greek scholars, besides Herodotus, who a lot of people distort his work, who basically was giving it to you straight up, was telling you that, you know, the Greeks basically, when you pay attention, is taking this stuff from ancient Egypt and repurposing it for their own gain, for their own benefit. So when you get into a lot of his work, he goes into what the ancient Egyptians was talking about. Now, let me point something out, because you're going to get confused, a lot of people. All of this stuff And this is going to sound crazy. It's going to make a lot of people skeptical and doubtful. But you got to understand, you can't trust none of this stuff. You have to go into every single bit of all of these scholars and their work and think about it and say, well, possibly somebody came in there and changed what was said or took out or added some things to a lot of the works. It's very tough. This is why you got to keep doing research and keep looking before you just accept what they were saying, because a lot of stuff possibly was changed. But when you can find what these people are talking about from multiple scholars and find actual facts and proof to back up what they were speaking to, then you can rely on a lot of these scholars more so. This is what I have found to be true with Diodorus and with Herodotus, which I know a lot of people say Herodotus is not proven true, but a lot of stuff that's important, his works is proven. So I pay attention to these Greek scholars because a lot of them really put out this information, because what you got to understand was everybody wasn't in agreement on what happened, plain and simple. And you had a lot of people who started to understand the spirituality of the ancient Egyptians and what they was doing and how all that was taken away. And a lot of people didn't have faith in the direction that the Greeks was headed. But when you take a step back and look at it all again, we see this stuff dealing with the same things we see in biblical religion. We look at Egyptian mythology and we see it's talking about the same things. Corresponding with Greek mythology, Greek mythology corresponding with Egyptian mythology. All this stuff is talking about the same stuff. And as we understand it, going back to energy, vibration, frequency, and what have you, when you get really deep into it. So we see clearly in Greek mythology that they're talking about the planet Saturn. We see clearly that the moons of Saturn are named after Greek gods. All of this is pointing to Saturn. Again, when you start getting into this stuff, it's a reason this stuff is corresponding with these things. And when you get deeper into it, you start to understand what they're talking about, as we'll get into down the line. But suffice it to say that when you look at Egyptian mythology, that they are speaking about Saturn as well. And then, of course, they're not going to go and name it as Saturn. But since we understand that Greek mythology took from Egyptian mythology, we can look at it and say that they were speaking about the same thing. So as I said before, when the Egyptians are referring to the sun, I believe they're talking about Saturn as a sun and not about the sun we see when we wake up in the morning. Everything, all the aspects that they're speaking about fits Saturn being the sun and not our sun being what they're talking about, because our sun does not have an eye. Our sun does not fit with the description of the, the pineal gland and what everything is speaking to, as far as the, Saturn looking like an eye and it having, all the characteristics that fit Saturn that does not fit our sun. So clearly it's talking about Saturn. And don't get me wrong, you have the ancient Egyptians, of course, referring to the sun that we see today as well. You just have to understand when they're talking about what. Now, it's going to make a lot more sense when we get down the line and start talking about this more. But now remember, I talked about in Ancient History, Volume 1, the Phoenicians. And the Phoenicians' land being part of the Egyptian Empire. And you got to remember, the Phoenicians worshipped El, so did the Canaanites. So when we find El, we know we're talking about the Phoenicians. We know we're talking about the Canaanites or the Phoenician Canaanites. And we know El to be Saturn. Now, what they'll tell you when you look and you start digging and doing this research, that another name for El was Elah. I-L-A, Elah. And again, this is why I tell you, do your own research. Don't pay attention to what these people say unless it fits, unless you can really get proof for it. Now, Elah wasn't another name for El. Elah was the moon. Elah is the moon god. This is what it's referring to. See, it says a rare spelling, Elah. No, it's talking about a moon god, the moon god. So we can also find Elah in Hinduism. So Elah in Hinduism is the progenitor of the lunar dynasty. So what is the lunar dynasty? It says lunar dynasty. In Hindu mythology, the lunar dynasty is one of the 4 principal houses of the Kshatriya Varna, or warrior ruling caste. This legendary dynasty was descended from the moon. while the other principle houses the solar dynasty, claims descent from the sun. Then it says here Soria, or Sora, Soras. What are we talking about here? We're talking about Islam. So let's go back to Ilah and understand what Ilah in Hinduism, Ilah can change from male to female and vice versa. So it says here, as a woman, Ilah married Buddha, the god of the planet Mercury and the son of the lunar deity Kshatriya, which Kshatriya means moon god. So Ilah married Buddha, or Buddha Graha, which Buddha Graha is the god of Mercury. Now it says here, Buddha in Punic mythology is also a deity. He is also known as Soumya, son of the moon. So what these researchers have not put together or are not telling you is you have Saturn god, god of Saturn, and Ilah, Ilah, which they changed to Al-Ilah. Now the thing is, when people start seeing this Ilah, they started separating it, which they should, as the moon god. But when they seen it in reference with El, they figured it was another name for El, knowing that it had to deal with the moon. There's no way you can separate the two. You can't see Ilah and think it's another name for El, which is why I don't know why they put that there. But Ilah is the moon. So you have Ilah, and what they don't understand that the ancients had already figured out was the connection between the moon and the planet Saturn. So what Ilah became Al-Ilah, and so on and so forth. Al-Lat, Al-Uzza, Manat, daughters of the moon god Sin, whatever you want to do to break it up, to make it fit. It's going to correspond with the moon. And of course, you have a lot of people in the Muslim faith, Islamic faith, that can't accept that their religion is based off moon worship. But when you go back and do the research, that's all they did back in ancient Mesopotamia. Remember, Sir Leonard Woolley was the one who had found one of the largest temples of the moon in Mesopotamia. So they found all of these artifacts. This is where they found the statues with the dudes sitting down with the moon symbol on their chest. I mean, look at this stuff. There was finding this stuff all over the so-called Middle East. Worship of the moon. Look at the hands, the way the hands are together, like the prayer we see in Islam today. This is where the stuff comes from. It's ancient. It predates Islam. This stuff was found in the Chaldees. Remember, they found the stelas. Remember, it has the moon symbol on the stela. They've been finding temples of the moon throughout the Middle East for years. It's a bunch of them. They exist. They have existed for a long time, because you had, for a time, as I talked about before, there was a time before the moon, before Earth actually had a moon, that so many ancient civilizations talked about. We know at the top of a mosque, they have the crescent moon. We know that they use a lunar calendar. We know that the new moon marks the first day of Ramadan. So we can find the moon in Islam easy, clear as day. Now, it's the star part that people get confused about. What is the star? The star is clearly Saturn, plain and simple. So this is what it's talking about when it says Ilah, the moon god, Saturn. So we see them with the crescent moon. We see them walking around the Kaaba, which is the black square symbolizing the planet Saturn. And this is what it's going back to. We can see it clear as day. You have Saturn, you have the moon, you have you have Ilah, clear as day. So as I said, the ancients, they remember there was a time before the moon. And as many people have talked about, as far as Saturn putting out this frequency and vibration and the moon picking it up, it's a reason why they coupled Saturn and the moon. So a lot of people will tell you, researchers will say, well, they believe that's where it came from. Remember, who built the moon? If you read the book, where did it come from? And you have these civilizations speaking about a time before the moon. This is what they talked about. So you can imagine, as I said, the moon just appearing. There had to be a major event for these people. And all kinds of, temples and monuments went up to the moon who just, appeared. And this is what El Elah is. They put them together. El Elah. So you have Isis, the moon, Ra, the sun, El, Saturn, Israel. It's just that simple. So when you look at these stelas and carvings, that's exactly what it's saying. You have the two suns and you have the moon. So they're telling you one sun, Saturn, which was a sun, and the moon. A lot of people look at these depictions and they wasn't able to put it together of what they mean. There's two suns up there. Clearly that's a sun symbol. Why is it two? There's two, and you can see the one with the waves symbolizing Saturn, as I talked about before in previous videos. So you have these ancients back then marking Saturn, the sun, and the moon. El Elah, or Israel. Plain and simple. And the stuff, it goes back far when you pay attention and look. And in none of this stuff can we find anything alluding to, this, what they believe Islam to be. It's the moon. It's the moon. It's just tough. And it's crazy that we have all of this death and destruction because people refuse to read. People refuse to do research and to look at where this stuff truly come from. And it could be found within their own history, their own ancient history. I mean, they can walk around there in Mesopotamia and Iraq and find these temples with the worship of the moon. But a lot of them find this stuff and they have no knowledge, so they automatically believe it goes back to Islam. When it goes back to moon worship. Worship in the time when the moon came into existence from the planet Saturn. When you look at the stones and look at the facts, they put all three. This is exactly what they're telling you. So now in Greek mythology, of course, you have the same thing. You have moon worship. You have multiple moon gods and goddesses. So you have Selene. Selene would be the Roman Luna, dealing with the moon. Now, Selene is sister to Eos and Helios, which we know Eos is the goddess of the dawn or the daylight or the sunrise. And Helios, of course, the god of the sun. So we find in Greek mythology, long before Islam, here you have the moon, you have the sun. Plain and simple. Put them together. So we're talking about the same thing, talking about the same stuff. You're going to find, as I said before, with all of these religions going across the world, ancient and present, going back to ancient Kemet, going back to the same stuff. Now, our modern day religions, the main three stem from the Greeks. The Greeks were the only ones that was, closest to Kemet to get this kind of knowledge. And we know that in Heliopolis, which is in Egypt, you had the temple of the sun or the temple of the phoenix in Heliopolis, where the Greeks came in and studied with the masters, the grand masters of ancient Kemet, the ones who basically taught at the mystery schools. They went to Heliopolis. When you look at the glyph for Heliopolis and the temple of the phoenix or the sun, this is what it looks like. And you can clearly see you have that cross at the top. You start breaking the stuff down and getting into it, you can't escape the facts. The stuff is so blatant, it's so obvious, it's not hidden. They just know you won't look. And even if you look and find it, so what? It means nothing to them. They are in power. The people who taught at the ancient Egyptian mystery schools were the real Masons, the real Grand Masters, the people who had the real knowledge. They was almost equivalent to the pharaohs themselves. They was right below them. These were who the pharaohs looked to. These dudes had all the knowledge. Plain and simple. Of course, the pharaohs did as well. And you had the Greeks come in and learn and get this knowledge and get this information and begin to apply it to their civilization and begin to do exactly what the ancient Egyptians did as far as make up Greek mythology and deify things and create these deities and gods to basically hide math, science, astrology, or what have you. This is what they did. So, of course, once they got to a point where they realized that the spirituality involved in what the ancient Egyptians was trying to do, they did not want to accomplish. Their goal was strictly material and to stick with the materialistic world. So they let Egypt be buried in sand and they wanted to completely forget about it. They took all the manuscripts, they took all of the information, and whether they kept it or not, whether it all burned in the Library of Alexandria or not, they was content with the outcome because they had enough information to do what they want. They didn't care about the gold, the diamonds, the jewels, or what have you, all that stuff that's still under the sand, all of the stuff that was uncovered later on. As I said before, they didn't worry about that because they already had more than enough information to execute their agenda. And we are here today bearing witness to them executing their agenda still to this day. Now, I don't think people realize how much Greek mythology is in so much of our everyday life, how in almost every movie that has to do with any kind of fantasy or what have you, you are dealing with stuff that we can find in Greek mythology. It's just that simple. Now, I talked about before how we can look at the Marvel universe and how Marvel was based off of ancient Kemet. Stanley said it out his own mouth. Now, when you look at those old Marvel characters, it's clear as day. You can clearly see they come from Kemet. So you had Marvel, which basically dealt with Egyptian mythology. You mix in a little bit of Norse legends and other stuff within Marvel, and that was Marvel. So you have Marvel dealing with Egyptian mythology, and you go to DC. DC clearly dealing with Greek mythology. You have Greek mythology in Aquaman. You have Greek mythology in Captain Marvel, and of course, Wonder Woman. Now, the Wonder Woman movie, I believe it just came out on Blu-ray. It was in the movies not too long ago. And clear as day, if you've seen the movie, it's basically right out of the comics, plain and simple. They did Wonder Woman in the movies exactly out of All-Star comic number 8, which is the first appearance of Wonder Woman. In All-Star comic number 8, we first get Wonder Woman, and you can see here clear as day, this is exactly how it starts in the comic. It's the same way it was in the movie with the plane crash and her finding him in the water or what have you. Same stuff. So now, what is Wonder Woman's real name? Diana. So now some of you already know what I'm going to say. Some of you are already like, oh shit. Diana. Who is Diana? What does her name mean? Now, in the comic book, it says clearly, she's going to be named after her grandmother, who was the goddess of the moon. Goddess of the moon. Look at her outfit. You got the moon, her name, Diana, goddess of the moon. Her outfit, you had the stars. So you have the moon, you have the stars. You look at her forehead. You look at the crown thing that she wears on her head. You have the sun symbol there, representing the star or the sun. Wonder Woman is giving you the planet Saturn. It's clear as day. It's giving you Greek mythology, even more clearer. Talk about the same stuff. Diana is the Roman and Greek goddess of the moon. If you remember in the movie, who did she fight in the movie? She fought Ares, the god of war. Ares. The whole movie dealt with Zeus and Ares and Greek mythology and everything like that. The Amazons, all that stuff. Greek mythology. It's giving it to you right there. Look at the shield. It has the star. She has the star and the crescent, star and the moon. Her name is the moon. So we find this stuff in so many different things. It's always going back to Greek mythology. And the point I want you to get in this first part, because there's so much more we're going to get into in this series, so you can see clearly, one, what the Greeks have done and what they're doing, what they have shown us so far, which is crazy. So much that they put out there. But if you don't get this prerequisite and understand this stuff first, it's not going to make sense later. Trust me. I'm going to put it together so you can really get this stuff. But the Greeks had so much to do with, of course, our civilization and how things unfolded, after Kemet fell and after they took over. And we see it everywhere. We see it in so many places. And, once I start really getting into the information, I start picking up on so many different things and looking at so many different shows and seeing Greek mythology all over the place. It's everywhere. Now, the thing is, a lot of this stuff probably has been brought to some religious people's attention, but not so much in detail. But a lot of people, again, because we have seen Greek mythology so many different times, we have been taught about Greek mythology in school, but not in depth. And a lot of people just write it off. It can't be Greek mythology now, because they wouldn't have told us about it. But it's Greek mythology. You go back and you put it all together. You look at the fact that we get the inception of biblical religion from the Greeks. They wrote both books, Old Testament, New Testament, Torah, Bible. written in Greek first, then translated into Latin, which the Romans held on to it in Latin for a long time. But all the ancient manuscripts are all in Greek. Not a coincidence. I mean, what else? I mean, it's so clear. It's so clear. And the more you get into the information, the more you see it clear as day what happened here. So it should be absolutely no doubt in your mind anymore about biblical religion, if there was, as far as to where this stuff came from. I mean, you can go find this stuff on vases, thousands of years old, still in museums to this day. Greek mythology. So we know we have these vases that go back, 800 BCE, 300 BCE, 400, goes all the way back to ancient Greek times with these, inscriptions or depictions of Greek mythology and the Greek gods, showing you how old this stuff is, the fact that it's in museums and that it predates anything biblical. It just kills it. So we don't even have to go to the manuscripts themselves of Homer and of Diodorus, of Hesiod, I should say, and look at what people like Apollodorus talked about, and Virgil, who lived more closer to towards the time Christ was supposed to live, I should say. And these scholars, these poets, Homer, they put all this stuff out there. This was their doing. And remember, the same way it was with biblical religion, or I should say today with movies more so, how you get these people that are knowledgeable, that have this knowledge, this occult knowledge, and they understand how to hide it within their stories, within their movies. And that's what it's all about. That's what it's about. And as I said before, it's not for us to get the hidden meaning. It's for us to just watch the movie and enjoy the bullshit, the fairy tale story, to get you all caught up and emotional in the story and give your energy to boosting the lie and the deception. Because that's all you're doing. Giving your energy to the story, getting immersed within the story, and you giving your energy to the lie, keeping the lie going. Instead of looking at it and your energy going to the truth about what it's really talking about. And if you have everybody energy going towards the truth and what it's talking about, the truth will be revealed. But instead, you got people emotional about a story that's not true. As I said before, if you're looking at movies, if you still get scared by scary movies, then you are not fully awake yet. If you can't comprehend on a conscious level that these people are actors and they are on a set, there are special effects, CGI, motion picture graphics going on here that is put there with makeup and, music to scare you out of your energy. And when you're conscious of this and you're conscious enough to understand, what's going on, it doesn't affect you. It doesn't bother you. Now, and of course, if something jump out of nowhere, you're going to, it's just normal reflex. But you get me watching a movie, see the credits roll, see it start up, starring such and such or what have you. Your conscious mind know it's a movie. It's actors. What are you scared of? So it's just something for you to practice ridding yourself of that kind of fear and you giving energy to this stuff. But it's all movies. What do we talk about? We talk about the movies. We're talking about Hollywood. And who owns Hollywood according to everybody? The Jews. The Jews own Hollywood. Remember, people always say, well, the Jews responsible for everything. The Jews responsible for slavery. The Jews responsible for this and that and this and that. The Jews run Hollywood. But who are the Jews really? Who are they? Goes back to the Greeks. Remember, the Greeks created the Jews. They created Judaism. They created the Hebrews. So who's really running what? The Greeks, the Romans, the white man. Plain and simple. So when you pay attention, when you start to see this, it start to, take shape in front of your face that we're talking about two different people here. When you look at the citizens of Israel, take a look at them. They look mixed. When you look at the real Jews in power, look at these people standing around the president. They look like white men, because that's what they are. It's a big deception right in front of your face. These are the people who hide behind the Jewish garb, the Jewish beard, the name, but they are really Romans, really Greeks, really white men. And we always say Jews run the world. The Jews, the Jews, the Jews. The Jews killed Jesus. The Jews, the Jews, the Jews. Who are they? You have people masquerading as Jews, but are really white men. Steven Spielberg. You see these people who claim Judaism. What are they? So we get that understanding that these people are really Romans, white men in power, using Judaism to cover up who they really are. And if you are smart and you have some kind of, knowledge, you understand that if you want to gain any kind of power in this world, if you are in the eye of these people in power, if you want power, if you want to keep your position or grow your position, you go to the wall. You go to the wall. And it's a saying that they say in circles, in esoteric circles, go to the wall. What is the wall? The Wailing Wall. All you got to do is pay attention to who has been to the wall. Who goes to the wall? Everybody goes to the wall. Your presidents, they go to the wall. Bush, Clinton, Obama, Trump. Actors go to the wall. Mick Jagger goes to the wall. Morgan Freeman goes to the wall. Look at these people. Even Mini-Me, Vern Troyer at the wall. Omar Epps. Everybody goes to the wall. And look at this knucklehead Tyrese over here at the wall acting the fool, acting. And then he goes and put this on and go to Dubai and act some more. But Tyrese is smart. He knows what he's doing. He knows that those presidents have done the same thing. They have went to the wall and then they went and bowed their head before the Saudis. It's a game. There are rules. And you got to understand how this stuff works and who is really in power. It's a big front, big, mask, shroud that's over the faces of the unconscious people of this world. And even over the face of people who believe they are conscious. It's a lot you're not seeing and don't understand. And I'm different from everybody else because I understand. I get it. I understand. It's not so much as trying to do what these people are doing. It's an understanding. It's a way you have to move when you deal with certain things. There are rules, unspoken and unseen, that you better know. And this deals with just universal law itself, deals with karma. I mean, it's rules. And it's tough to get. You have to dedicate yourself to this kind of information and knowledge. And people are just not willing to do it because they don't have the time. Or they feel it's not important enough. But, I have dedicated a large part of my life to it. On the long plane ride over here, 10 hours, I got a straight flight from Copenhagen. But, I thought about this whole thing and I was like, damn, you know what? I believe it's time because I've been waiting to do this DVD for a while, but I wanted to get this part out first because it's going to be more to get you to understand what's taking place and what these people are doing and how they stay in power and who is really in power. So we know, of course, you had the Greeks conquer the Persians who conquered the Egyptians, and we know where the Romans came in later and would conquer the Greeks. But they didn't really conquer the Greeks because they're basically the same people, when you really think about it. So you get the whole Greco-Roman era. And you have to still think about it. When you have Greco-Roman, how the hell could some Arabs come in and defeat both the Romans and the Greeks? Because now you have the Arabs in Egypt, of course. But you got to understand, a deal was struck, a deal was made. And this is why you have the Saudis, the family, the descendants of the people who made that deal, while they are kings. And you have these families, these people who are on top, who are ruling. And it's a huge deception that it's not as old as people think it is. I mean, it's old, but it's not that old, because you can go back to a time where we was in power before them. We're talking about as early as, the 13th century, where you had African kings. We still do, but not in power the way they was back then. So if they've been to the wall, 9 times out of 10, they sold you out. They sold us out. As I always say, I don't jump on the bandwagon for none of these celebrities. Believe it or not, a lot of them, when they get in, they have absolutely no clue, but they get trapped. And some people speak out in their own ways or what have you. And it's a lot of clues that a lot of people leave. The problem is, no matter what you say, and this is probably why a lot of them sell us out, because you can walk right up to a Christian with a book with every bit of proof that you need to, convince a rational person of anything. And, they'll call you a demon. They'll call you crazy. No matter how much proof you put in people's face. I mean, the stuff that we're talking about here, if we try to explain it to people, they just won't accept it. And a lot of people get so scared by this kind of information that they run from it. They want to run back to their safe life where they work a 9 to 5, where they come home and cook dinner and struggle to pay bills and hopefully get a vacation once a year or what have you. And to them, that's fine. To them, that's okay. They don't mind that life. They don't mind living that way. And this is exactly what the powers that be, had planned, that they give enough. They leave the door open so you can make a way for yourself, so you can have some kind of life. But if you want to get to the good stuff, as you see, you got to be lucky. You got to work hard. In any case, you're going to be aiding their agenda. It doesn't matter, because you have all that money. You're going to spend it, so you're going to help them out. You're going to do stuff with it, so you're going to help them out. You become an actor, a doctor, a lawyer, sports agent, or a sports athlete, or whatever. You're part of the system, which is why, again, they put in the Bible, get out of this world. Do not be in this world. Do not lust for money. Forget money. Don't be rich. Separate yourself from all this stuff, because they're trying to tell you something. And it's tough, for people to grasp the concept and what this stuff is really trying to tell you in biblical religion. The fact that they even put this stuff there to give you the actual truth. I mean, it's crazy, but they know that they put enough out there to lure you in, and they understand that there's no way you're going to choose the latter. You're not going to truly pick Jesus and his laws and his words, because if you did, you wouldn't be in church. You wouldn't be in the city. You wouldn't be, online or anything like that. So they know what they're doing. They know what they did. So, we go look at the wall, Will Smith, Justin Bieber, so many celebrities that you can find went to the wall. And that explains why they are in the position they are in and why they have the status that they have. Careers going down the drain, or, you're not getting enough roles, or you want to, get some new movies or what have you. You go to the wall. Go to the wall. But understand the people behind the whole thing are not Jews. They are perpetrating themselves to be Jews, to be Hebrews, but they are really Greeks. They are really Romans. No such thing as a Jew or Hebrew. So you had, and this is one of the few victories that we've had, because you have people like Arius, who spoke out, and other people who spoke out and told the truth about what was going on. The ones who were real historians and really understood the Egyptians and Greek mythology and what these people basically was hiding in biblical religion. But what was supposed to happen, believe it or not, is that something I'll talk about down the line when we get into these people. But what was going to happen is you had the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds, who they call a holy family, was basically going to come out. Supposed to have been in 2000, I believe. Was supposed to come out and reveal themselves as being the heir or the bloodline of Jesus Christ. Believe it or not. And it was going to come out and explain that to the world and come up with this, whatever they was going to do, that was going to somehow bring people more closer to the religion and more closer to whatever agenda they had planned. But obviously, clearly, that was, ripped to shreds. And we have a lot of people to thank for that. A lot of researchers who lost their lives, who lost their careers, who put out so much information. Because as I said, when you understand ancient Kemet and what was going on, you have a lot of people who understood the true spirituality of what the civilization was trying to do and where it was headed and where we would be had they remained in power. And they see the direction that these people are trying to take us in. And it is completely devoid of true spirituality. And it is filled with a bunch of perversions. Plain and simple. These people cannot get the kind of spirituality the Egyptians was trying to achieve. So you see, everything is perverted. Everything is headed more towards a technological future. That's going to be dealing with technology. They are already building the androids. They're already building all kinds of synthetic software, all kinds of neural programs that's going to have us using our brains to interact with machines. This is the future that they want. Because this is all dealing with material. When everything they're trying to do can be done spiritually if they allowed us to develop. But they can't reach the potential that Africans can reach. And if we all decided to go spiritual, Africans will reach a high point of power. Theirs will plateau and will cease. Ours will continue to grow and we will be where we were. And they know this, which is why they don't want to kumbaya and hold hands and go spiritual, because they know the Africans would reign supreme if that ever happened. Just that simple. And it's going to be tough for people to accept. But, just to give you another example, let's go another one let's go back to Greek mythology real quick. And let's go to the garden. Not the Garden of Eden, the Garden of Hesperides. Some of you know what I'm talking about. The Garden of Hesperides. What is that? They get into the Garden of Hesperides, and depending on which author you read from, there were either 3, 4, or 7 Hesperides. The Hesperides were these women who basically guarded the tree. This tree had golden apples that, if bitten, will grant immortality. Sounds familiar? To make it sound even more familiar, they were joined by a serpent dragon named Ladon, who, if you read in Greek mythology, depending on which one you read from, not Zeus, but Hercules kills Ladon. So you have, clear as day, the Garden of Eden story as far as the serpent and the women and the fruit and immortality right there in ancient Greek mythology. But we know we could find it in Kemet as well, minus the serpent. But the tree is there. So it's game. It's game over. When you understand, as I said before, all of this stuff comes from the Greeks and the Romans. They created Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all of which they control still to this day. So what we're seeing today is small time. It is, an agenda ongoing. Their ultimate goal is to completely get rid of anything organic, truly natural, and have us in a information digital, computer machine age. Plain and simple. And everything being controlled electronically, wirelessly, not naturally, not dealing with anything natural, anything organic, any real stuff, everything artificial. Look what they're doing to the food. It's artificial everything. Artificial stuff to make it taste like the real stuff. It's sick. It's crazy. What they are and what they're doing is right in front of your face. Not real reality. We're going to make actors to fake this stuff, to make movies. It's fake. We're going to fake the events of something, the actions of something, and make a movie out of it. Everything is fake. Everything deals with some kind of mimicking, some kind of copy. nothing is real. And we get immersed into this stuff. And we watch movies and we watch all this stuff, and everything is just entertainment to hide away from the true agenda, which eventually their goal, they don't want to get rid of us all, but they want to wipe out as many Africans, as many black people as possible. The knowledge I'm giving you, they want gone. They want it all gone. It's all going to be gone eventually. YouTube is not going to last forever. Something will eventually happen to where all of the data, everything is erased and it's gone. People laugh and joke about putting out DVDs and everything like that. Yeah, people ask for DVDs, by the way, but of course I was putting them out because this reason. Digital can get erased. It's better to have a hard copy. Multiple copies if you can. But I have everything backed up. I have everything hard copy, soft copy. So the information must carry on. That's what's important. And this is my job, to carry the information. I'm just a small piece of what has to take place in order for us to succeed. And it seems futile. It seems like it's something that's impossible, but it's not, because you have to understand the universe and the nature of it, and the fact that they cannot do this forever. We don't know how long they will keep it up, but it won't be forever. That's for damn sure. These people are smart. They know what they're doing. And yeah, we had the Jews put Obama in office when Obama came in, but a lot of people don't realize that, the reason why we've seen all of the police killings and the racism we continue to see and everything when Obama came into office. Remember, this started as soon as Obama came in. We have an Oscar Grant and everything like that. Then Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown. All of this was during the Obama administration. Before Obama came into office, even when Bush was in there, of course, racism existed, but it's nothing like we see today. With the cops killing and everything that we see, and that's so crazy and obvious, and all these racists coming out of the closet. It wasn't that way. Why? Why they had to make this happen when Obama came in? Because Obama's black. Mixed, whatever you want to call him, he looks like a black man. If he didn't tell you he had a white mother, you would never think he would. That he did. So, the reason why is because, one, a monumental amount of white females and white people voted for this black man to become their leader. Think about that. Think about that to the psyche of these people. You had all these white people overwhelmingly vote for a black man to be their leader because he spoke well. He made so much sense. He was really elegant and really had an ability to put his words together correctly. And they bought it. They bought right into it. And is that all it takes for a black man to be educated, to put on a suit and speak well, speak the truth and talk about things that you want to hear and he has your attention? Yeah. Because we all stupid. And they understand that. And they had to combat that, because now you have a black man in the White House, the leader of the free world, so to speak, and of these white folks. Black people walking around pounding their chest like, yeah, sticking our chests out like, finally, thinking something good gonna happen. But there's no way in the world that was gonna let us kumbaya and come together and basically, unite off of Obama. They couldn't allow that. They couldn't let that happen. So the whole racism card, the whole racism thing had to be played to keep us separated during the Obama administration. He had to be attacked racially. He had to be attacked as far as the way he was running the country. And there had to be this separation, or else, because black people are so trusting and we want to be involved with everything, black people was going to look at this and just, run with it. And white people was going to join in. And a lot of healing could have took place under Obama if he was like a true, real president. A lot of good things could have happened from that, or people could have taken that lead and said, you know what, this black man was voted in by all these white folks. Let me take the lead on this and put out more unity themed things. More movies on unity, more commercials on unity, and let's push this thing. They couldn't allow that to happen. So they pressed the panic button, pressed the racism button at the same time, and everything has been, going on ever since then. Because Obama truly could have united this country if he was a real president and he really controlled things, if things was the way it's supposed to be. He had the power to do that, and white America was basically saying, we are ready for it. So what all the shootings did and everything after that, all the racism did was completely destroy decades of black people and white people building a relationship where we can actually live together. And, black people showing that we are just as good as anybody else on this planet, that we are not who you think we are because of the media. And we was able to kind of sort of showcase that and say, this is what we can become. This is what we can do if given a chance. And they didn't want that to apply to the rest of black America. So now they poking us, trying to get racism out of each side, and they are doing so successfully. Divide and conquer. This is how they beating us. So when you step back and look at it all, you understand one. Basically what they did was choose Israel as their base of operation. Plain and simple. You have Rome, of course, but Israel is basically the hub where they come together, where they basically control everything from. It's all about Israel. This is why Israel was important. This is why they chose Israel. This is why Israel is doing all that it's doing, and why we send them billions of dollars every year. So they go to the wall, and they're running everything from there. And the people that's there now, the citizens, have absolutely no clue what's going on or who they are. You have so many people that was born into these religions, into these civilizations, believing this stuff is absolutely real, and they have no clue. And it's nothing that you and me can say that's going to bring them out of it. It's just how it is. This is real damaging information in this video that only a few people are actually going to get and accept. But if you are real with yourself, it's clear as day. You can see it clear what has taken place, who has done it, and what the agenda is. And, as you continue to do more research and watch the series, you'll see a lot more, like exactly how deep this stuff goes and how it's spread to other civilizations, and why it seems as if they are all in on this. And they are. So now these Greeks and these families that's in power have everybody food, and you have so many people blaming the Jews and not realizing that they are the same. The government, the Jews, all this stuff is all connected. It's all one and the same. It's all connected, and now you can see how. And it's crazy, but it's the same. You can't separate the Jews from this white man. You can't separate the Jews from the powers that be. It's one and the same. Same power structure, same people. And we could trace it all back, we could trace it all back to Greek mythology. When you just start from Greek mythology, you work your way down, this is the conclusion you're going to come to. And you're going to see it clear as day, and everything is just going to make more sense. It's just like doing, being a detective, doing a forensics analysis, putting together the pieces and, getting all the clues together. And this is what you're going to end up with if you really take the time to look. And they know that we're not really going to take the time to look. And even if we did and we found out every single thing, so what? Good luck convincing the rest of the world. Good luck getting the power structure together to do something about it. Good luck uniting the people to help you. And this is where we stand. I could talk to them blue in the face. I could tell you everything, which I will. What is that really going to help? It's going to take a lot more lifetimes to fix this. And my information, believe it or not, is to prepare you for then. To prepare you to get this stuff in you, to understand that, in your lifetime, I highly doubt there will be any real change. In fact, I believe these people will have their new world order soon, within our lifetime. I'm not saying it's going to be the baddest thing in the world and, it's going to be, chaos or what have you. But if we keep going in this direction, it will be. you know, but as long as people keep waking up, which I'm glad to see people are, then, you know, our energy can sway, can change things. And this is what they're trying to take more control of, you know, to use us to create this reality, which is going to basically help them complete their agenda. And that's basically what it boils down to. So, as I talked about in the frequency video about, you know, the baseball game, which, surprise, surprise, Houston won the World Series. And you go back and you look, you had the Boston bombing, and then you had the Boston Red Sox win the World Series. You had the hurricane in Houston, then you had the Houston Astros win the World Series. Easy as day. Stuff like this, you're supposed to go bet money, which I did, which I won. Plain and simple. Won me some money. Because I said, you know what? If the Houston Astros get into the playoffs and they get past the first round, they're going to win the World Series. Prior knowledge. So what did I do? I bet some money. And I came up. But this is the kind of stuff you can do when you pay attention to this type of stuff. But as I was trying to point out in the frequency video, these people, they can somehow predict or see the future. Trust me on this. They can see the future. They know what's going to happen. They know what actions they take that's going to be successful or unsuccessful for them. And this is why they move the way they move and why they do certain stuff the way they do. But they still leave patterns and they still leave clues and ways that you can see what's going on. But clearly, they have seen us revolt and they have seen us win, which is why they are not in power right now, because something that they want to do, they can't, because it's going to lead to their downfall. So keep that kind of stuff in mind, because they are one move away from people, you know, just taking this shit over, from people uniting, people coming together. So they can't keep this stuff up forever. And as long as we keep getting this knowledge out there and keep, you know, taking this stuff in, you know, we got a shot. So this was Greek Mythology Volume 1. And I wanted to get this out, you know, while I was still in my head and really set the stage for the rest of the series that's going to be deep. It's a lot of stuff we got to get into. But this was part 1. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch and purchase and support, which I always appreciate it. You know, I'm getting settled in, a lot of running around to do. I'm going to be putting out a lot of DVDs coming up because I got to take a little break. Got some work to take care of, business stuff. And, I'm going to be in America for a little while. So I have stuff to take care of, stuff I got to do. So I probably won't be able to upload too many videos or what have you. So I want to get this stuff out now. But, you know, after that, I'll be, you know, right back to work. Of course, right back to putting out videos, DVDs. But I want to get this stuff out now and get, you know, a bunch of videos out and, you know, keep everything going. So, yeah, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch and support. And, you know, follow me on Instagram. If you got an Instagram and you ain't following, follow me at The Real Merkabah. And I'll see you guys next video.